They're weighted differently. So payment history is 35% or worth up to 192.5 points. Credit utilization is worth 165 points. Credit age is worth 82.5 points. And then hard increase in credit mix are both worth 55 points each, right? So those are the separate factors. And when you're building your credit, if you focus on those top three categories, which is credit utilization, payment history, and credit age, you'll have at least like a 680, 690, and sometimes even a 700, depending on.
So can you go through each one of those top three? Like credit utilization, explain.
I definitely can. So payment history is the largest factor in your credit score. So in layman's terms, pay your bills on time. If you cannot make a payment, schedule an arrangement with your bank. Because the second that your bank reports a late payment, which is a payment that's 30 days past the due date, you will have a late payment. Because your payment history is the largest factor, one late payment can literally drop your score up to 100 points, depending. And so then credit utilization, which is one that's slept on, and honestly, it's the one to me that has the most immediate impact on your score. So what I mean by that is your credit utilization is pertaining to credit cards. So how much you're using your credit card, how much balance, how much of a balance you carry over to the next month is going to determine your utilization. Keeping that below 10% is going to do wonders for any profile. And then credit age is something that when you're in the beginning of building your credit, you're not really going to have any control over that. As you open new accounts, close new accounts, if you are repairing your credit and you're getting things deleted, that also affects your credit age because it is an average. So after you get your base level credit profile, and we can go into that, don't apply for anything for 6 to 9 months, and that'll aid to improving your credit age. Because that's the mistake that a lot of people make when they're building credit. Probably the number one mistake.
So what?
Applying too fast, trying to build credit too fast, thinking that anything that they apply for and get approved for, it's a great thing for their credit profile.
So the kid that's walking on a campus right now, he's walking into that calf, and those companies are waiting for him to give him that $500 card.
Yep.
Or the $1,000 card.
Yeah.
Sometimes $2,000 if they know you, right?
Yeah.
We want to make sure that they're using 10% of that. Perhaps.
So it's not necessarily using 10%. So when it comes to using a credit card, when it comes to using your credit card, most people think that utilization depends on your usage, and it doesn't. Okay. It just depends on what you carry over. And I'll explain that. Utilization is only reported one day a month. So it's on your statement date, which is the last day of your billing cycle. Matter of fact, everybody who has a credit card needs to look at their credit card statement and find their statement date. It's the last day of the billing cycle. That date is so important because whatever balance that you have on a credit card, that is what's going to be reported to the credit bureaus and also used as your utilization. Your statement date is different from your due date. So most people get confused because your due date is going to be before your statement date, probably like a week or two prior. So even if you paid your credit card bill down to 0 by your due date, if that balance is not still under 10% by your statement date, then it's not going to be counted as your utilization. It's not going to be reported to the credit bureaus. So identifying when your statement date is and making sure that you pay your balance, pay off at least 90% of whatever you spent during the month, pay off that balance, then you'll be good. Because like if you have a $500 credit card, you can use the entire $500. You don't have to stay below 30% or 10%. You just have to make sure you pay it back within that same billing cycle, which is key.
Okay, so what are the first steps to building good credit history?
Okay, so the first steps I would say is, so I have a base level credit profile recommendation for everyone, right? I say that if you are wanting to build credit, but like build a healthy credit profile that will continue to grow and kind of set you up to get high credit offers and low interest rates and all of that, the base level credit profile. Everyone needs at least 2 credit cards. It needs to be at least 2 revolving credit cards, right? Doesn't matter the limit, doesn't matter if it's subprime, it doesn't matter if it's secured. You can literally get 2 $200 credit cards, right? Make sure that you keep that utilization every single month. You keep that utilization below 10%, right? And then because we have to hit a limit of, we have to hit at least 4 accounts. 2 of them will be credit cards. The third account needs to be a short-term installment. A short-term installment is just any installment under 36 months. Kickoff. Every bank pretty much offers a credit builder loan. And then if you can get a long-term installment. So if you have a student loan, if you have a car loan, if you have a mortgage, those are considered long-term installments. So if you already have those, you don't need to apply for another one. Just focus on the other 3 accounts. And having those 4 accounts, 2 being credit cards, 2 being installments, short-term and long-term, it's going to, and not applying for anything else. I want to be clear. Do not apply for anything else after you get that those accounts. Don't apply for anything else for 6 to 9 months. And you should be able to get pretty much any credit card that you want. Consider if you pay it on time, and of course, make sure you're not getting collections and other things. But yeah, that's the perfect credit profile that speaks to the credit scoring algorithm and will allow your credit score to grow at the most rapid pace.
Would you put the buy now, pay later companies into that short term, right? Like the Affirms of the world?
It depends, because I see a lot of those on credit reports, and
Right.
I'm glad you brought that up. A lot of those people are getting them too often. Like they'll finance a $200 purchase. Any loan under $200 just looks like a low level loan. It doesn't feed the algorithm of the credit scores. They pretty much kind of look down on that, right? Like, so if you're applying for credit and your lender sees a lot of those buy now, pay later accounts, and low level is what they call low level accounts, that almost, regardless of what your score is, that's almost to your detriment, because it looks like this person is not financially stable. A lot of people don't realize that their score doesn't tell, like their score is just for a consumer, really. When it comes to like your lenders, they're looking at so much more than your score. There are so many other determinant factors of if you're going to get approved for a car, over your score. Like your score tells them nothing, because you can falsely inflate your score. People buy trade lines all the time and things of that nature. When it comes to your credit profile, doing things like that, I would not recommend. Not in the beginning, not unless you have an established credit profile with years of credit history. Then you can kind of afford to have those accounts.
So, okay. So what's the best ways to use credit cards to improve your credit score?
Yeah, credit cards are my favorite, because like I said, they're like the only accounts that have an immediate impact. Like when you get a loan, you don't really see the positive benefits of a loan until you're at least 90% done. So most people will get a car loan and they're like, I've been paying my car on time. Why is my score not increasing? It's because you're very early into that loan, right? When it comes to credit cards, you can see a change in your credit score within like 60 days, as long as you know how to use it. And I would say how I use, we can just use a $200 credit card, for instance, right? If you have a $200 credit card, the first thing you're going to do is identify your due date and your statement date, right? Your due date, you want to make sure that I zero out my balance on my due date, because any balance that you carry over past your due date, your bank can charge you interest on, or will charge you interest on. So after my due date passes, I wait until my statement date, and I make sure that my balance is whatever the credit card limit is. If I have a $200 credit card, I make sure my balance is below $20 going into that next cycle. After your statement date passes, rinse and recycle. You can spend it or, do whatever you please, but identifying those 2 dates, understanding when you need to pay your credit card, understanding how much you need to carry over or not, will be the saving grace for credit limit increases and growing your credit score.
Because some people say you're supposed to leave a little bit on their credit card every month.
So that's a great question, and I'm glad you asked that. I pay my full balance off by my due date, so I'm not charged interest. However, I do carry over 1 to 3% on my statement date.
Why?
If you report a 0% utilization, sometimes the algorithm could read that as you don't have a credit card, one, or contrary to popular belief, lenders don't like when you don't use your credit card. Yeah, like they want to see usage, because that doesn't, if you're not using a credit card, that doesn't really speak to your money management or financial management skills. It just shows you don't use it, right? So if you leave a small balance, it shows that you use it, but also shows that you pay it back.
I think that's a very common misconception. And I had to realize that, like,